Yeah, well, good morning, everybody. And September, and I guess kind of basketball season seems to keep getting moved up every year. This, at least the start date does. I still kind of reflect on the October 15th, right, in the Midnight Madness back in the day, and somehow we've moved up to September 22nd. But that's okay. Football season's in full gear, and the fall sports, which means basketball's not too far away. So, we've had 2 official practices, Monday and Tuesday. We actually take today off and then get back at it for the rest of the week. But, really pleased with the summer, the preseason. We have 11 players right now, which is a little bit of a smaller roster than what I've ever had. But really like the group, think there's some great depth. Excited to continue to kind of work with them just to kind of see where we end up. But we've started to put in the full package of who we are, what we are, how we play, and I've liked the response up to date. So 5 returners, 6 newcomers, and like I said, they've blended. Great kids are getting along off the court. All that seems to be fantastic at the moment. Just have to continue to improve every day. So with that, I'll open it up.
So with those newcomers, how do you feel like as you're going to take that stretch and before you get to game 1, do you feel like it's transitioning well, or are there still some things that you need to work on?
Well, both. It's transitioned well up to date. We have plenty to work on. Like I said, don't rush us too much. We're only 2 days officially into this with a lot of new kids. A year ago we had the foreign trip and a bunch of practices in the summer to lead up to this time of year, and we haven't had that. But excited about the newcomers. They're going to get plenty of opportunity, obviously, to make a huge impact on the program, and I think they will.
What's your biggest takeaway from the summer? Maybe you have 5 returners, 6 newcomers. What's your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, mostly the off-the-court stuff, just how quickly can we blend, how quickly do they get to know each other, can we start to build the trust and the family and those types of things. Really easy group from that standpoint so far. They all seem to get along. They're low maintenance, as I like to say, which makes my job a little bit easier. But I think we got the off-the-court stuff figured out, and now we'll just keep working on the on-the-court stuff.
Coach, you mentioned the roster size of 11. The give and take on that is it's a lot easier to keep 11 players happy as opposed to 14, 15. The flip side is you got to pray for no injuries, right? I mean, is that kind of the give and take?
It is. Yep. No, you pretty much nailed it. That's what it is. If you get 2 hurt, you're down to 9, and you can't play against each other. Now, thankfully, we have a really good practice team this year that allows us, if we do have those, we can always play. So it's not like we get down to 9 and we have to throw a coach in there or something like that. We do have a group of guys that are here every day that can help us. So, it is a give and take. We may get one more eligible. We're still waiting on an NCAA decision on one and a visa on one more. But for now, we're rolling with 11, and that's what we'll go with.
Recruiting on the practice team then this year?
Yeah. Caden's sitting in here today, so I'll throw him a little bone. And Tristan, both of them, they go and scout, and they go over to the rec center and find talent and bring them over and find the ones that fit what we are and have the right mindset. And we have a really good nucleus of kids that coming back off of that team too. But I think the other day we had 14 of them at our first practice, which is probably a little too many, but they were having fun, and we could split and play against 2 different groups, and you can get creative when you have that many bodies in the gym.
Never really gone beyond 8 giveaways since you've been here, right?
8 players?
Yeah. Maybe 9?
Yeah, and I mean, in the ideal world, it would be 10, to be honest. It would be a starter and a backup at every single position, and then when you have an injury, 11, 12 can kind of fill in. But the way we play allows us to play more. We need to play more, especially early in the year, and then if we need to pull back late in the year, typically we have the ability to do that.
Could this be maybe your best rebounding team here?
I don't know. To be determined. Potentially, yes. I don't know if we're still on I don't know if we'll be a great rebounding team. I think it just kind of depends on lineups and who ends up with more minutes. But certainly we might be a little bit better on that end.
With 2 days in and thinking through to the next couple of weeks, what's your list of priorities? What are the things that you need to get accomplished?
Yeah, I mean, we got the whole kind of spreadsheet where we break it down week by week, and it's like Saturdays I like to scrimmage, so whatever we've worked on for the week, we play, and I think we need to play and compete, and whether that's against ourselves or against our guys' team. So that will come up Saturday. So we put the press in now, and we don't do that all summer. We don't ask them to start pressing and even much of the preseason. It's just a lot to ask of their bodies. So, but that is in. So we'll start to evaluate that a little bit, work on our man offense, man defense, and zone offense and zone defense, because we play so much of both. So it's just really like week by week. This has been a little bit more of a zone week, actually. So, when we kind of scrimmage, we'll continue to work through that. We'll come back next week and go back to man. And so just kind of mixing it up, so not to get too specific, I guess, to answer your question, but, it's zone emphasis here. Next week will be a man emphasis, and then maybe the following week we put it all together.
Kids play enough games. I saw something Kelvin Sampson said earlier this summer. Some kid was asking him about, some parent was asking, what can I do to get my kid better? And he said, I took up 500 shots or whatever. He said, go find a game and play in a game. The things you learn in the game, how to play with teammates, how to play with your teammates against people, shooting with people. Do kids play enough?
Well, they play too much of organized basketball. I think what he was probably referring to is just, back in our generation, we just went out and played pickup. I don't know if our kids even know how to organize a pickup game if somebody doesn't help them, tell them, what to do and how to get going. Or we went outside and you just played. And, if you lost, like, you might sit for 30 minutes because there was that many people waiting to play. And so I think we've lost some of that along the way. They play, honestly, probably too many games. We practice very little now at the youth levels. And then they go play 5 games on a weekend and maybe haven't practiced, instead of, the European model is the complete opposite, right? They practice 3 or 4 or 5 times a week to play 1 game. And we wonder at times why the skilled players and, at the professional levels, and some even into the collegiate level, why some of the more skilled players are, international type players. And so I think we need to find the balance here, we need to play. They need to play games, and organized is perfectly fine. But there's also just go explore and learn how to make up your rules and find your teams. And, okay, you got 3 post players on your team for this game. Good. Figure out how to play, or maybe you don't have size this game. Those are the things that we used to do on our own, because your first 5 that made it, that was your team. You shot free throws or threes. That's your team. I don't know who it's going to be. But other times you rolled in and you had your complete group of 5 that you wanted to play with. But then I think too, because we play so many games, the winning and losing at times doesn't mean quite as much. Oh, I'm going to lose at 9 a.m. Great. Well, at 4 o'clock, I've got another game to go play. Where when you only play once a week, winning and losing now seems to be a little bit different. So
his point, I guess, was the kids figure things out when you play those games. Whereas you go in a gym and shoot 500 shots with nobody guarding you, well, what does that accomplish? You're playing against air. I think that was his point.
Yeah, there just needs to be carryover. I think as a coach, we want them to be in the gym, and you want them to work on their skill set, and a lot of them have trainers, and there can be great qualities to all of that, but you want to make sure it carries over into, obviously live action or, system. Are we working on things that will help you when you come play at West Virginia for us specifically, or are you just working on random skills that may not necessarily, apply once you get here?
Coach, you mentioned sort of earlier about blending and trusting each other and stuff like that. Can that happen in practices, or is it not until you face some adversity later in a season that really clicks?
No, I think if we do it right, it will happen in practice. I think that's on us as coaches to set them up at times, not necessarily for failure, but for those opportunities to see how they respond. We had a practice, I think last week, we had all sorts of chaos going on, and we were creating it, and we haven't done it a ton, but we're just trying to create chaos, and I'm trying to learn on who can survive, who thrives in it, who wilts in the chaos. Was it too much for some of them? It wasn't. I thought they did a pretty good job that day. But yeah, there's just times, drills that we're trying to create, whether it's chaos, adversity, things that we're trying to learn these kids and who will respond and who steps up in the big moments, who wants to take the big shot, And we had a tide drill yesterday, and it came down to a sudden death, and had to get a stop, had to get a score. Who wants that shot? That shot's a little different now all of a sudden when the game's on the line, as opposed to who just fires up shots throughout practice when it doesn't mean as much.
Specifically about Sydney and Jordan, though, players who have been in your program for a while, how do you make them uncomfortable and sort of force them into those types of situations to continue to test them?
Yeah, I think it's just a different uncomfortable for them. It's, Jordan, now you're leading new players, and you're trying to learn them as much as she's trying to worry about her game, and I think I've seen Jordan do that where she's probably deferring a little bit right now just to try to let others go. I think Shaw's doing the same thing. I even made eye contact with Shaw yesterday because we missed her twice on like one more passes to get her the open look, and some of the new kids took shots, and I was like, Shaw, we'll be fine. I promise you're going to get those looks, but she's ready for it. And, I'm like, okay, guys, like this is our best three-point shooter. She's probably going to get the most attempts, and we're like missing her a little bit. But for her, it's okay. Like we're trying to learn. I know Shaw can take that and make that shot. I do want to see if these other kids can take and make that shot. So it's just, their role is just a little bit different today, but it's about time to start. Like I've been starting to tell them now, summer and fall, I've allowed them to take shots and kind of show me what you're working with. And now it's about time for me to tell you the types of shots you're going to get and who's going to get certain looks and who's not.
You were talking earlier about the press. I mean, obviously, I'm assuming you're not going to teach it any differently, but how much different will it kind of look without JJ?
We teach it the same way every year, and then it takes on a life of its own based on the team that we have. So we teach it a certain way every year, and then basically the personnel dictates what it's going to look like. I don't think it'll look a whole lot different. No, like JJ, phenomenal, obviously defensive player of the year. So that is hard to replace. But I think we have some other bodies that can fill in, and we may have to do it with more bodies and more depth than just having a JJ that you can rely on for just 30 straight minutes to play at that elite level. But I think Sydney Woodley is an elite defender. Gia Cook can be an elite defender. Logan Johnson can be an elite, great defender, more probably in the Kaya mold than the JJ mold, but obviously we know what Jordan can do, and Shaw has come so far defensively and is playing at a really high level on both ends right now. So I feel like we have the numbers, we have the bodies, we have the depth. Maddie Parrish is a freshman guard that in time will get there too. So yeah, we feel pretty good about it actually.
When you have a team that was so dependent on that for scoring, for everything, for starting the offense, and you have to expect, as you said, a little bit of a drop-off, do you find yourself saying, hey, I've got to look for a little bit of something else to complement that this year, or are you still in the process of, hey, we might be as good, just different, as we have been in past seasons?
Yeah, I think, again, a little bit of both. I think we can be as good as we've been. There may be a little drop-off, but I don't actually, as of today, I don't see it being a ton of drop-off from that standpoint. I think where we'll be different is on the offensive end a little bit. We'll have, a little bit more scoring in the paint through the 4 and the 5. Kyle was a little more perimeter-oriented. We may be a little more post, play from the inside out at the 4 and the 5. Jordan Thomas is coming along and been really good here lately. So we're just different. We don't have a Kylie who was like a stretch 5 that was out, playing more on the perimeter. So I think we'll rebound better at the 5. We'll have a little more paint presence at the 4. We'll also be able to play a more guard-like 4 if we choose to go that way. So I think there's versatility to it. Now, which way that ends up playing out, I'm not sure quite yet. But I think it'll look the same defensively. I think we'll still be pretty elite on that end, and we'll turn people over and force pace and tempo and let defense lead to some offense. But I think when we get in the half court, we'll be a little bit different as well.
How important is it to face a team like Duke so early in the non-conference before you get to Big 12 play?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Duke's going to be a top 10 type team, on a neutral floor. But, in our state in southern West Virginia, that is like on at the Greenbrier, like there's we're going to learn a lot about our group. And I am super excited about the opportunity to go play them there. What is it, 4 games in, I want to say, I think it's the 4th game of the year, so we'll have some opportunities to get better and then go get really tested, by a veteran team and a coach that's now coaching the Olympic team, and, just lots of, that thing sold out in like 24 hours. It's not a very big venue, but still, that's, it'll be a great test for us. We're going to learn a lot.
Expectations for Jordan, where are you wanting to see her take that next step in her game, being that number 1 person now? Yeah,
I think offensively she's going to take on even more of a role. I think she's an elite defender. I think she's been undervalued probably, because JJ's been here too. But Jordan Harrison is an elite defender. On the ball, takes a million charges every year, rebounds it fairly well for a point guard. So, I just think she'll be able to shine probably even a little bit more. Like I said, the challenge is just going to be her getting to know these other new kids to see, how she can make everybody else better. We need assists should go up. I want that. We've challenged her, assists up, turnovers down a little bit, continue to shoot the three at a high rate, maybe even look for it a little bit more because I think she turns down a few threes that I'd like her to go ahead and take.
You look back at the North Carolina game, absorb that, take the Iowa game in the second round. Other than playing that game in Morgantown, what is required of your team to get to the next level, to move beyond that?
It's just when you're in a few possessions is the difference. I don't know that there's anything great or that we have to do a whole lot different. And we were tied in a minute and a half and. At Iowa to win that game, and we led in the third quarter at North Carolina. So it's how do we finish? Can we rebound a little bit better? Obviously, we struggled mightily to score against North Carolina. I think defensively we've been able to hang around to win those games. So the next step, I think, offensively is just to be a little bit better. We need to make more shots when, those possessions shrink in the postseason, as we all know, and they're going to, and scores probably are going to be a little bit lower. And so can we rebound better? Can we score in the paint maybe? Are we as reliant on the perimeter as much as we've been the last couple years? So that's what I hope we're a little bit better at. That gives us maybe a chance, maybe a little more toughness, grit. Same thing being on the road in the Big 12. We lost some of those doubleheader road trips, 2 plays. We lost the back end too many times last year. So we were actually talking about that in our staff meeting yesterday. So just always evaluating, always trying to find ways to get better. We don't really look at it as the North Carolina, Iowa. That's the end goal, right. But we got to get there again too.
But the schedule is partly to get you that game in Morgantown, right?
Well, I guess you got to take care of business. I've said this a little bit. I may have underscheduled, and you never know going in each year. But looking back at it, maybe underscheduled it a little bit a year ago. Hindsight, so that's easy. We'll evaluate this one at the end of it. So this is a good one. This is the best schedule we've played for sure. It's certainly beefed up, and I guess we'll evaluate what we get done. Did we underschedule, overschedule potentially, or was it just right? And you just don't know.
You could assume that the team's going to be good, but
you don't know.
May or may not be.
Yeah, and that happened a little bit last year where there was a couple on there that we thought, maybe an NCAA tournament team, or a couple of them from the year before that we thought were going to be good tests that just didn't have a great year. You get an injury, things like that just kind of – so you don't know. But you do try to schedule based on the team you think you're going to have, and you can't schedule it based on what others always will or won't do.
That's caught your eye so far?
Yeah, I don't know. Everybody keeps asking me that. There's been really a lot of them, all of them. They're all going to have a role, so it's hard for me to completely know who that will be yet. The Big 12, Gia Cook played in the Big 12 at Houston and averaged double figures. Logan Johnson was at Texas Tech and is a great fit for us and what we do. She's been fantastic. Kiara Wheeler, Mimi from Norfolk, had a great career there, played huge games against big-time competition, not night in and night out, but like Maryland in the NCAA tournament. I think she had 20 and 11, something along those lines. So she's done it. Carter McCrae from Wisconsin has been, she was 11 and a half or whatever she was, and 7 and a half, 8 rebounds in the Big Ten. So, there's production there. So you just go up and down, the newcomers, and they're all there. So it'll be one of them. Well, 2 of them or 3 of them are going to take some big steps for us. They have to.
At this point, you talk a little bit about half-court offense. Is that the biggest work in progress when you're this early, trying to, find that continuity in half-court sets?
Well, I don't know if it's the biggest one, but it's certainly been up there, and that's what we spent the majority of the summer in the preseason on. Was transition and in the half-court. But yeah, we've got to get better there. We need to, if we don't turn people over, what is it going to look like? We've made a few changes, some subtle changes to what we do. There's so many ball screens set, and that's what these kids operate out of. So, we've gone to a little bit more of that type of motion offense now. And so, yeah, until we play somebody else, though, we won't really know. But yes, we've spent quite a bit of time trying to get better in the half court.
Coach, your first 2 seasons here, each season you set not you, but the team, I guess, but set an attendance record for the school. Is it possible to, as you head now into year 3, is it possible to maintain that, build on that? I know that's not your biggest concern at this point, but there is a story or a role about this program in that sense.
No, that would certainly be the goal, would be to continue to grow it. I don't want this to be the end. I don't want a flat line here. I think we've got great momentum. We've had great momentum. I think our season ticket sales are already higher than they were a year ago. So I think we're trajecting that way, progressing that direction. I think obviously we had a great home court advantage. A lot has to do with the crowd. We're comfortable here, but we went 16-0, and I don't know what we are. You know what we are in my 2 years here at home. It's like 30-something. One, maybe something like that. So we have a great home court, and the fans have a lot to do with that. But there was some huge environments here a year ago. We just got the schedule, which was a little interesting because we had so many Sunday games and not very many Saturday games. So what does that do, to attendance? But either way, I think, the kids, the families, we've tried to make a connection, obviously here locally, but within our state and within our region, that people seem to enjoy coming to watch us play, and our kids play the right way, and we play hard and compete and obviously win at a pretty high level right now. So I hope it grows. I hope it continues to grow.
Player through the years, you kind of always describe Kai as the glue player. Who could that be this year?
Not sure yet. That's a great question. We don't have a Kaya. We don't have that exact same player, so it's going to look different. And so we'll wait and see who that glue kid becomes. And we may not necessarily have the glue. Kaya just was so good at covering up, everybody else, or if there was a mistake. She's so fast, so athletic, so explosive that she could get there. We always wanted Kaya to score a little bit more on the offensive end, but what she did on the defensive end was she was the hardest kid to take off the floor at times because she did all the little things for us. So we'll keep evaluating and figure out if there is one of those, and if not, we'll just find it'll just be a different role for somebody.
Let the roles play out, or do you start to force them as you begin to absorb what the players can do?
I let it play out as long as I can until it just is time that we just don't have time to allow that anymore. And we're not quite there, but like I said earlier, we're getting a little bit closer where roles are going to have to start getting defined. I mix up the teams about every day too, up till now, and now I've got to start probably putting some of the groups that we think may be on the floor a little bit more together. So that needs to start happening at a higher rate. So roles haven't been overly defined. I've allowed them to kind of show me what you're working with, show me what you got type mindset up to date. But now I'm kind of not tired of it, but I just need to move on. And we got games coming up here at some point, and we need to get some rotations figured out. And we'll start to do that here sooner rather than later.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.